Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the story of one of the most enigmatic, powerful, and honestly misunderstood figures in all of ancient Hindu texts. We're talking about Sukraacharya. Now, this isn't just your standard run-of-the-mill mythological tale of good versus evil. No, this is a sprawling cosmic saga. It's about immense power, perceived systemic injustice, and an ultimate rebellion that literally shook the heavens. So if you think you know the exact boundaries between the divine and the demonic, well, prepare to have your perspective entirely shifted.
Think about it. What actually drives a brilliant, profoundly gifted saint, someone who is absolutely destined for greatness, to just turn his back on the divine establishment? Why would he become the sworn protector and guru of the demons? It's the central mystery that has fascinated scholars for centuries. How does a genius scholar pivot so dramatically? Let's find out.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's how we're breaking it down. 1. The rejected prodigy. 2. Alliance with the Asuras. 3. The secret of immortality. 4. The wrath of gods. 5. The ultimate sacrifice. And finally, 6. Legacy in the stars.
So kicking things off with part 1, the rejected prodigy, a brilliant scholar denied.
You know, every great rebellion has an origin story, right? And Sukracharya's begins with a deep, personal sting of rejection right in the halls of academic and divine learning. Let's start with his roots. The name Shukra itself translates from Sanskrit to clear or bright, and oh, he was incredibly bright. He was born into the prestigious lineage of Maharishi Bhrigu, literally one of the legendary Saptarishis, and his mother, Kavyamata. He arrived on the 8th day of the Shravan month, which the texts describe as a highly cosmically charged day. From a very early age, this guy possessed an innate, unparalleled capacity for mastering Vedic knowledge, complex astrology, and even state policy. By all accounts, he was an absolute prodigy.
So naturally, Sukracharya goes to study under the great guru Angirasa. But they run into a massive problem: systemic favoritism. Angirasa heavily favored his own son Brihaspati. And it gets worse. When the time came to appoint a chief priest for the Devas, the gods, Lord Indra actually chose Brihaspati. Now, why did he do that? Well, Indra and Brihaspati were close, sure, but crucially, Sukracharya faced intense prejudice because of his mother Kavyamata's lineage, which had Asura or demon connections. So, despite being widely acknowledged as the much more skillful prodigy, Sukracharya was flat out denied the highest honor. Feeling deeply insulted, and rightfully so, he packs up and leaves to study under Rishi Gautama. His worldview was forever changed by this.
Moving right along to Chapter 2, Alliance with the Asuras, embracing the underdogs.
So, what happens when the establishment rejects its absolute brightest mind? Simple. That mind goes out and finds a brand new establishment. Sukracharya didn't just walk away and sulk, he traveled all the way down to Patalaloka, the underworld, and the reception down there, entirely different. The Asuras, who had been long defeated and marginalized by the Devas, welcomed him with immense, absolute respect. Finding the dignity among these outcasts that the gods had denied him, Sukracharya makes a huge pivotal decision. He becomes the guru to legendary Daitya kings like Bali and Prahlada, and he takes a firm vow to empower those oppressed by the Devas. He was stepping up to single-handedly level the playing field.
But as you can imagine, the tension didn't just stop at political rivalry. It got violently personal. While Sukracharya was away, the Devas, led by Indra, actually made a cowardly attack on his ashram. Sukracharya's mother, Kavyamata, stepped up, using her yogic powers to paralyze Indra and protect the Asuras hiding there. The gods, panicking, called upon Lord Vishnu. Vishnu threw his Sudarsana chakra and beheaded Kavyamata. This was a massive, dramatic turning point. Sukracharya's father, Rishi Bhrigu, was so furious that he cursed Lord Vishnu for the ultimate sin of woman slaughter, condemning him to take 7 human births. Now, even though Bhrigu later resurrected her, this traumatic event cemented Sukracharya's permanent, furious hatred for the Devas. There was absolutely no going back after that.
That brings us to Chapter 3, the secret of immortality, the quest for Sanjivani Vidya. Okay, so to truly protect his new students, Sukracharya knew he had to break the gods' absolute monopoly on life and death. The cosmic imbalance was pretty straightforward. The Devas had Amrita, the legendary nectar of immortality from the churning of the ocean. The Asuras? They didn't. Which meant in every single war, the Asuras died permanently while the Devas just got back up. To fix this huge disadvantage, Sukracharya realized he needed a power equal to or even greater than Amrita. So he set his sights on the Mrita Sanjivani, This was an ultimate, highly guarded secret mantra possessed by Lord Shiva, and it was capable of literally reviving the dead.
To get it, Sukracharya commits to a grueling 1,000-year penance, and we're talking extreme here, hanging upside down from a tree, suspended over a smoking fire, inhaling absolutely nothing but the smoke. Indra, seeing this, completely panics and starts rapidly escalating his disruptions. He kicks things off with mild winds, then ramps it up to fierce storms. When that doesn't work, he sends beautiful Asuras to distract him. Finally, out of sheer absolute desperation, Indra sends his own daughter, Jayanti, to ruin the fiery ritual.
But Indra's ultimate trick backfired spectacularly. Jayanti gets there, sees the sheer dedication and suffering of this sage, and actually feels deep remorse. She repents on the spot, stays at the ashram as his devoted servant, and eventually, the two of them fall in love and get married. It's wild. Through sheer unbreakable willpower, Sukracharya finally completes the 1,000-year penance. Lord Shiva appears, immensely impressed by the effort, and grants him the Sanjivani Vidya. But Shiva leaves him with a very stern warning: do not misuse this power to upset the cosmic balance.
And that leads perfectly into Chapter 4, The Wrath of Gods, Cosmic Imbalance and Divine Curses.
Well, as you might guess, Sukracharya immediately takes his new power for a spin, and the fallout is pure chaos. War breaks out again, but this time, when the Asuras fall in battle, Sukracharya just casually sits on the battlefield, chanting the mantra, resurrecting his students endlessly. The Devas realize they literally cannot win anymore, so they run crying to Shiva, complaining that his boon is destroying the entire universe. Shiva, furious that his one warning was completely ignored, takes drastic action. He literally captures and swallows Sukracharya whole. Trapped in darkness, Sukracharya just sits there and meditates, until he eventually escapes from Shiva's body as his seed. Because of exactly how he exited, goddess Parvati declared him to be Shiva's son. He was officially granted the name Shukra and earned Shiva's pardon.
Now, you'd think he'd take it easy after being swallowed by a god, right? Nope. His dedication to his students never wavered, and it literally cost him a piece of himself. Later on, Lord Vishnu incarnates as the dwarf Vamana to trick the Asura king Bali out of his empire. Sukracharya, being brilliant, sees right through the disguise instantly. Now, to finalize the donation in these ancient rituals, water has to be poured from a vessel. To save his student from the trick, Sukracharya shrinks himself down and blocks the spout of the water vessel from the inside. Vishnu knows exactly what's happening. So what does he do? He takes a piece of straw and pokes it into the spout to clear the blockage, piercing Sukracharya straight in the eye. He lost his eye that day, but he proved he would sacrifice absolutely anything for his disciples.
Which brings us to Chapter 5, The Ultimate Sacrifice, the Bizarre Resurrection of Kachar.
Seriously, if you thought losing an eye was extreme, this next event really shows the absolute limits of his devotion to knowledge and duty. The Devas desperately wanted that Sanjivani mantra for themselves, so they sent Brihaspati's son, Kacha, over as a spy. The Asuras figure this out, absolutely hate it, so they murder Kacha, burn his body, and secretly mix his ashes into Sukracharya's drink. Through his intense powers, Shukra suddenly realizes his murdered student is literally inside his own stomach. Now he's in an impossible bind. If Kacha comes out, Shukra dies. But bound by his absolute, unbreakable duty as a teacher, Shukra actually teaches the resurrection mantra to the boy, while he's still inside his stomach. Kacha then bursts out, tragically tearing his guru apart and killing him. But armed with that new knowledge, Kacha immediately uses the mantra to resurrect Sukracharya. It is a morbid, incredibly intense display of a teacher's ultimate duty, like a giant looping paradox.
Sadly, though, tragedy just kept following him. Right after this extreme sacrifice, Sukracharya's daughter, Devayani, who had fallen deeply in love with Kacha, proposes marriage to him. Kacha rejects her. His argument? Well, since he was technically born from her father's stomach, they were now technically brother and sister. Devayani was completely heartbroken and furious at being used by the gods yet again. So she cursed Kacha, declaring that the Sanjivani knowledge he stole would completely fail him when he needed it most. It just shows that even when Sukracharya played fair, his family always ended up paying the price.
Let's look at how this all wraps up in Chapter 6, Legacy in the Stars, from myth to astrology and texts. Now, it's absolutely crucial to understand that Sukracharya is not just some figure confined to magical myths. He left a highly tangible footprint on our actual history. He wasn't merely a magic user who revived demons. His profound knowledge survives today in a text called the Sukraacharya. This renowned ancient text is heavily focused on political economy, statecraft, and governance. His theories on managing a kingdom, taxation, and policy were so incredibly robust that versions of this text survived through the ages and actually influenced Indian kingdoms right up until the colonial era. A real game changer.
Furthermore, his identity is permanently woven right into classical Vedic astrology. Shukra is the planetary deity of Venus, and his designated day of the week is Friday, which is known in many Indian languages as Shukravara. Associated with the color white, his domain heavily influences wealth, beauty, and luxury in astrological charts. So his celestial identity isn't just a story, it's a daily reality for millions of people.
To put all this into perspective, the most crucial point here is how myth perfectly intersects with astonishing early science. Ancient Hindu astronomical texts, like the Surya Siddhanta, actually calculated the precise movements of the cosmos. They accurately determined the sidereal revolution of Shukra, the planet Venus, to be exactly 224 days. It is truly incredible how they managed to merge these profound mythological narratives with such incredibly accurate early astronomy.
We've covered an unbelievable journey today, from a rejected, marginalized student to an immortal planetary fixture. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Was Sukracharya actually a villain for empowering the disruptive demons of the cosmos? Or was he the ultimate embodiment of a true teacher? A man who, despite facing systemic prejudice and literal divine wrath, firmly stood by his principles and never, ever abandoned his students. That incredibly blurry line between good, evil, and unwavering duty is exactly what makes the explainer of Sukracharya so endlessly fascinating. Thank you so much for exploring this with me.